If you think you're falling behind because you don't have 10 Division One offers, you are completely wrong. I'm your host, Nick Gonzalez, and I went from riding the bench for 4 years in high school to a Division One FBS roster. Today, we have a very, very special guest, Sofia Chepenik, a very well-renowned known lacrosse player for USF. Appreciate you hopping on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to hear your story. So, before I kick us off and get into how you made it to USF, tell us a little bit about how Sophia picked up a lacrosse stick. Like, how did you learn to play lacrosse?
So I picked up a lacrosse stick a lot later than most in sixth grade. So I'm from Florida, and Florida is not a hotbed for lacrosse just yet. I mean, it definitely has come a long way since I picked it up. Now, almost, I don't really know, about a decade ago, but I was a soccer kid. I played soccer for 12 years. That was my sport. And then I just kind of got burnt out. I started travel really, really early on. And by the time I got to middle school, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So my parents were looking to put me in another sport. And since they have 4 kids, they always try to connect what sports we're playing so that they can make the drive for themselves easier. So all
Yeah.
my sisters were playing lacrosse for our high school. Like, they had clinics on Sundays that they would just do a bunch of play days with all the high schools around the area. And they also had clinics. And so they signed me up for a clinic, and it was about 2 hours. And I played my first lacrosse clinic there with my coaches now, at USF. So they were there the first time I picked up a stick. And then my siblings would just tease me. I hated lacrosse because I could not pass or catch. And of course, my sister was someone that picked it up so easily. Like, it was like the first time she was ever thrown a ball, she caught it and could run with it in cradle. And I was the complete opposite. I think the first time I caught a ball, it hit me in the head. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do this sport.
So it wasn't clear skies as soon as you touched the lacrosse field.
No, not
I
at
was
all.
I was
Yeah.
about to say I thought soccer players just made the best all-around athletes, and I was going to give you a compliment, but you proved me
No,
wrong.
it is the complete opposite. I say that I'm athletic in a specific sport, but I'm not an overall athlete. And I know that, like, to some degree, but I'm an athlete in lacrosse.
Okay.
No, but my siblings would always tease me and say that I can never catch or anything. So I was like, I'm going to show them, I'm going to prove to them that I can catch a ball. So I hit the wall. We call it wall ball, which basically you're just on the wall. It's exactly what it sounds like, throwing and catching. And that's where I learned to catch. And then I would go out with my siblings, and just, it really sparked my urge to get better because I didn't want them to tease me anymore. So I could tease them back. And then once I learned how to pass and catch, I fell in love with the sport and haven't put a stick down since.
Yeah, that sibling rivalry is no joke. That definitely
Yeah,
pushes you to being a better athlete. Are you the youngest or the oldest or middle or?
no, I'm the youngest. So you can imagine how that went. I
Yeah.
was constantly being teased, and especially because my sister closest in age to me, she is a natural born athlete. So she's a soccer player that could play any sport at any given time. She was always the MVP. She was just such a great athlete, and I was the opposite. So I was like, you know what? I want to be better at lacrosse than her. And her teasing me definitely pushed me to work harder.
I mean, you are at a Division One school, so put into perspective, you're not very athletic is an understatement. You're very
Well,
humble.
I say that, but yeah, I've worked on it.
Yeah,
My strength coach here has definitely helped with that athleticism, that overall athleticism, not just my lacrosse athleticism.
definitely, definitely. So, what would you say, like, from compared to high school, what would you say the difference was in the strength programs
Mhm,
compared to like what you were doing to get ready for college?
mhm.
Maybe with private trainers.
So, luckily enough, my dad is actually a personal trainer, and he
There you
trained
go.
athletes. Exactly. So, free training for me, but he trained athletes in every sport except basketball. Well, he trained professional athletes in every sport except for basketball. So, and his philosophy, every strength coach has different philosophies. And, in high school, I worked with some trainers, but because my dad was a trainer, he would get a little picky about, the programs that I was doing and if he truly believed in it. And if he felt that he could give me a better program, it was kind of to him like, why would I spend money on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And like my siblings, so my dad trained my brother for wrestling. He was a heavy state runner up, and my brother actually played football at Tufts University in Boston.
Nice.
So, and then, yeah, so with him, he was like, I feel like I pushed him a little bit too hard, and I didn't really, I didn't want to ruin our relationship, but I pushed him super hard. And then obviously with us girls, so it's my brother and it's 3 girls. My other oldest sister, she's an artist, so not as much of, like, the training aspect, but she's a great artist. And then my sister closest in age to me, he didn't wanna push her the same way that he pushed my brother, so he didn't push her enough. And then with me, he kinda waited till I came to him and was like, "I wanna play at the next level, like, can you train me?"
Wow.
And so kind of once I got to that aspect, I had a couple of trainers, but no one that, ever I felt like had a big jump in my career. And then I started working with my dad. I started working with a speed coach. His name is Colton Lewis, and he's in Jacksonville. I still work with him to this day. He is amazing. And then I started working with a shooting coach for lacrosse. I always say shooting, and people are like, shooting? But yeah, a shooting coach. And then my dad was my strength coach. So his philosophy is a lot about functional strength. And so I never really touched weights until I got to college. So we were doing Olympic weightlifting when I got to college. We were doing all that stuff. And this isn't really related to your question, but I thought the biggest difference that I saw was the amount of muscle I put on. And as a girl in sports, sometimes you can get a little bit caught up in like body image. And so, seeing my body go through that change was definitely something that you have to get used to, but also something that I was super proud of that, my body is allowing me to go through this change and play at the next level. Because when you get to college, the girls are bigger, faster, stronger. So you
Oh yeah.
need to be able to catch up to them. And, as an attacker, you can't just be thrown around on the field. You have to be able to hold your ground. You have to be able to run down the ball and you have to be quick on your feet. So I still train with my dad. He is an amazing trainer and he definitely took me from, an average athlete to that next level college athlete. And I attribute a lot of my success to the training that we did. And not only did our training push me physically, but it was also the mental side. We would do very, very hard workouts this summer going into my freshman year. And we still do really hard workouts, but now I think my mind's a little bit used to it. But that mental aspect of being able to push yourself and then say, like, I did a workout like that and no one's working as hard as me really took my game to the next level. So when I got to college, and I was doing weightlifting and I was doing all that stuff, I felt like I had a mental edge that I could push through any workout because I had come from doing such hard workouts in high school, especially my senior year. But my freshman, sophomore, junior year, I really wasn't doing strength training because I just didn't have the resources, nor did I think about how important that was to my athletic development.
Right, right. A lot of young athletes don't really touch the weight room until that
Mhm.
senior year I've seen. But that's an amazing mindset that you've developed, especially from those trainings with your dad as your trainer. And I mean, that is definitely something to be very grateful for, like you said. But I wanted us to walk through like that high school grind. Like, can you walk us through a typical week, like during peak season of getting recruited? What are you doing with your dad in the gym? What are you doing at practice? And what are you doing to make sure that you secure an offer at a school of your dreams?
Yeah, so I feel like this question, there's like a bunch of different parts. So to fully understand in the recruiting process for me, my recruiting process was during COVID.
Mhm.
I had a list of my top 20 schools. I was like, I'm going to go to one of these. I was emailing them for a year, like over a year with, all the things that you should be doing up until September 1st of your junior year. Cause I don't know how it is for other sports, but schools for lacrosse can't talk to you until September 1st of your junior year. So yeah.
Whoa, I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, it's crazy, but everyone's working up until that September 1st.
Yeah.
You're going to all the camps that you can, you're emailing all the schools, you're doing all the stuff that you needed to do. And when September 1st hit for me, I was not contacted by any of my dream schools. I kind of felt very depleted because I was like, wow, I've been doing so much for this moment. And it was kind of a letdown for me. And it wasn't until a couple months that I started to talk to some schools that I really, really liked. And I'm very grateful for all the schools that, called me in general and had interest in me. But I just felt like I wanted something more and nothing felt right. So during COVID, I actually committed to a school in November. And then I went to the national championship game in May. So
No way.
November to May. And I was like, I want to play on that stage and I want to make sure whatever school I go to, I know that I can work towards it. And I don't think it wasn't that that school couldn't work towards it. I just, you know, I wanted to be 100% in my process, and I felt like it was a little bit rushed because of COVID.
Mhm.
So I decommitted, I opened back up my process, and I was putting in so much work. My junior year to my senior year, when I figured out that I wanted to go to a national championship school and I wanted to play at that level, and I knew that I had big goals for myself, but it wasn't until I fully went to a national championship game where I was like, wow, I want to play on that. But even leading up to the national championship game, like that season, because was already behind from COVID, I was doing everything in my power. So you asked what a typical day looked like.
Yeah.
Well, and, these were optional 2 days. I don't know if you can have 2 days in high schools, but everything was optional. I
They got banned now.
Yeah. Um, but in high school, we would have conditioning in the morning at, like, 5 a.m. or maybe 6 a.m., yeah, 6 a.m. conditioning before school because our school started at the late bell was 8:05, so you had to be, like, in your classrooms around 7:55. So we had conditioning for about an hour, then would go to school all day. And now being in college, you don't realize how long 8-hour days are in high school, but
Y
you would go to school a day. Then afterwards, we would have practice from like 4 to 6:30. And then I would go to the gym afterwards with my dad from 7 to 8:30, and we would do a workout. And I was getting in all my school time because you might be wondering, well, when were you a student? Well, I was getting in all my school time during my lunch and my free period during school. And I would make sure that I would prioritize all of that to get it done so that I could go work out. But I felt like doing all that extra work really, helped my mental game and then helps me because once I got to that summer, I was like, no one has been putting in the amount of work that I have been doing. And it gave me that mental edge of knowing like I can compete with any girl in the country. And for me, that was huge. And that's, when I realized what my goals were and were committed to the process and doing them, it's really important to align your actions with your goals. And something else that I implemented were micro habits. And micro habits, I still do them to this day, but it's let's say you do 10 minutes of something in the morning and 10 minutes of something in the evening that drives you closer to your goals. Then you think about what that does over time. So, like, at the end of a week, that's 100 minutes if you do that 5 times a week. And then you think about that over a year, and I just posted a video about it, so I know the math on it, but that's 80 hours and 40 minutes of work that you have done that are little tiny habits that you can do every single day that, it's 80 hours and 40 minutes of extra work that your opponent has not. And I think that those little things, finding the edge and finding what can I do that would separate me from other people is huge. And definitely coming into that routine of like micro habits, conditioning, school, practice, and then like another workout at night. I got to that summer, and when I knew I was working to get those high level, my dream school offers, I knew that I was putting in the work. And I truly believe you can always work to achieve your goals. And if you believe that can happen, you align your actions with it and you can make it happen. So I was doing every single thing in my power to make it happen. And all of the people call them sacrifices, but I just look at it as, things that I chose not to do because I didn't think that it would align with my goals. And, doing the extra work always pushed me to know that I could accomplish anything and get those offers if I really set my mind to it. And I didn't give up when it got hard, but instead I continued to push and I knew that's what I wanted to accomplish.
Wow. I mean, your work ethic is insane. You're like a workhorse. That's crazy
Thank you.
that you learned that from such a young age. Like, was that just all self-taught, or was it just you being the youngest, observing all these different types of athletes in your family and your dad doing all this like amazing work with high-end athletes? Like, where did you learn that? Was it just instilled in you, or?
I feel like there's always those questions or those videos on Instagram that is like, well, can you learn it or are you just born with it? And I definitely think it's always been within me, but you truly have to find your passion and your why for something. And if it is truly your passion and truly your why, I feel like you will do anything to achieve it. And that could go for anything in life, not just sports. And, I think it's a little bit easier to talk about with sports because it's, a passion that a lot of people share. But being the youngest of four and learning from my siblings definitely helps because I kind of saw like what they went through. And when my sister decided that she wanted to play in college, I was like, well, I want to play in college too then. And I think being able to see them go through it helped me. My mom is such a hard worker. So seeing her work was truly inspiring. And, she had 4 kids. I was 4 years old, my brother 7 years older than me. And so she had all of us at the same time, and she still went through pharmacy school with 4 kids. She accomplished that. So seeing her go through that, seeing my dad, he started his own, so he had owned gyms when I was growing up. So seeing him with his gyms, waking up early, like trying to achieve his goals, I feel like there's been a lot of people in my life that I've been able to look up to that have been very strong-willed and passionate about their dreams. So being surrounded by that has definitely taught me that if I have a dream, it's very capable. And my parents have always instilled in us that whatever you set your mind to, you can accomplish, and don't ever let anyone tell you no, because you can make it happen if you work hard enough. And so then I think, my junior year when I was going through that recruiting process and kind of let down those first couple months,
Mhm.
I was on the brink of giving up, and I was a lot easier to be like, you know what, I'm just going to be a regular student. I'm going to go to the University of Hawaii. I'm going to surf all day. Like that was my mindset at one point, and I was
Good
ready to give
a
up.
good mindset.
Yeah. I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna lay in the sun all day." Being a Florida when I was on the brink of giving up, there was one day, and I always remember this, and I always tell this story, but I lived in a small beach town during COVID called Palm Coast, and there was no streetlights, nothing, and I would always go on runs in the morning, and I was on a run, and I just remember thinking to myself, "If I have a dream, is nothing in my way that is stopping me from accomplishing it." And if it is truly my dream, I have to align every single action with that goal and with that dream, and I can accomplish it. And I think that moment I was, ready to give up. And then I was like, no, like I've already done so much to get to this point. No one is going to tell me that I can't accomplish what I want. And so I just continued to work. I stayed true to the process. And even though you don't see the results right away, staying true to your process is so important because you have to be okay with not getting the results
Oh, yeah.
a day
Absolutely.
after.
Absolutely. If you're focused on the results, you'll never achieve what you're going towards. And I mean, you mentioned a video about some small micro habits that you posted. Was that just on like your regular social media or is that somewhere else?
So, actually, I started a platform called Sofia Squad, and it's
No
on
way.
yeah, SKOOL. It's on school. And basically, I built it because obviously, in the time of social media and being able to build a brand, going into college, I was like, I want my brand to be empowering young female athletes. And so I kind of turned that into a platform on school, Sophia Squad, which is built to empower the next generation of young female athletes through confidence, mindset, purpose, and leadership training. And I think we've talked a lot about the physical side, but the mental side is just as important. And I think too, for female athletes, a lot of times I struggled with confidence and I see it in a lot of younger girls. They struggle with confidence, in the comparison. And well, she has something that I think that I could have accomplished, but she's getting it and I'm not. And it's easy to kind of dig yourself in a hole. And so I started it to help girls become the best version of themselves and to be more confident, to be leaders in the world, and to help them just achieve their goals. And
That's
yeah,
amazing. That's amazing. I love that. That's awesome. I mean, you are an expert in this mental toughness and confidence in the game because you're providing this information to young athletes. But what would you say are like the two most important skills for a young athlete getting to college for the first time that they need to know to keep their mental toughness and their confidence high?
that's a good question. And as soon as I answer, I'm going to think of more. But the first one that comes to mind is definitely, I've said it already, but truly aligning your actions with your goals. And I know that's the physical part of aligning your actions with your goals. But if you know that you are doing every single thing to accomplish your goals, the amount of confidence, everyone says confidence comes from preparation. So if you know that your actions are aligned with your goals and you are doing everything that you can be doing, you know that you've put in the preparation. So you'll fall to that level of preparation and it'll show on the field. And, one bad mistake isn't going to define you because if you continue to work and you continue to push through and stay true to the process and your routine and your actions, then you will see the goals slowly start to be accomplished in the
Absolutely.
future. So
Absolutely.
I think that's definitely the first part is like that confidence part coming from preparation. And then I would say the second thing, so definitely going into college, you are kind of just thrown into the fire, and there's a lot of girls with a lot more experience than you, and you learn a lot from those girls and definitely take it all in. But something that I tried to do my freshman year of college was change the way I played to fit kind of what my coaches wanted from me. And definitely do not do that. Do not change the way that you play. They obviously recruited you for a reason based on the way that you were playing out of high school. So staying true to who you are and staying true to how you play the game. And just if I remember there was one game, it was the first game I hadn't ever like not touched the field. And I remember going off the field and I wanted to cry, but at the same time I was just, thinking to myself, okay, what was I doing to get to this point? And I told my dad, I said, honestly, I've been trying to play the way that my coaches want me to play, but I'm done with that. I'm just gonna play the way that I know how to play. And since I started doing that, I've definitely had a lot more success doing that than trying to fit to someone else's standards. And I think that just like goes into being yourself and staying true to who you are. And then the second part of that is just keeping the promises that you make to yourself. Promises could be as small as I'm gonna get up at 6 a.m. and go to the facility early, or it could be, as big. I can't really think of a big promise, or like a big promise would be, I'm gonna go do my workout packet, which is the bare
Yeah,
minimum. But the more that you continue to keep the promises that you make to yourself, the more that I am a big scheduler. I like to schedule out my days, but if it's on my schedule, it's like, okay, that's a promise that I have to keep to myself to do. So if I say I'm gonna do it, then I have to do it. And once I started to keep those promises to myself, my confidence skyrocketed because I knew that I was someone that I could trust, but I also knew that my teammates could trust me because
absolutely.
I was the integrity that I had of my own. So keeping that integrity, keeping those promises that you make to yourself, and then just playing your game the way that you know how to play and not trying to fit into someone else's standard of you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you stack the days, you focus on getting 1% better every single day, and it all adds up. You don't focus on the end goal. It's all about the journey. I love that. That's really good advice, honestly. So I want to know. I mean, you have all this good advice. There was a point down the road where you've received some very impactful pieces of advice from coaches. I want to know what was one of the most impactful piece of advice that a coach has given you and how did it change your game? Like, it's something that you carry with you every single day.
Well, this is more of a physical side. I remember I asked a coach after a game. He's actually the coach at Louisville still. I think I was in ninth grade, and I always used to go up to coaches after clinics and I would say, what can I work on? Or like, what do you want to see from me next time?
As a freshman in high school,
Yeah. And it
you
definitely was
you
a little
have
intimidating.
the craziest work ethic I have ever heard of.
Oh, well, thank you. I was very intimidated, but like my
Yeah,
sign said, you just have to do it anyway.
I like that.
And I would just put myself out there and I was like, okay, well, I want to improve. And I was still as a freshman, I was behind, very, very behind. And so I was trying to constantly find ways to get better. And he told me it's very obvious when you don't want to use your left hand. So I would give you the advice to work on your left hand. And then during COVID, it was an opportunity. I looked at it as an opportunity to catch up. And I was hitting the wall for probably 4 hours a day.
Damn.
I would make sure that all my reps were consecutive and I would, do like 100 reps right, 200, and I would always double it on my non-dominant, but make sure that they were consecutive. So if I dropped it, I have to restart. So that definitely added time because sometimes I would get to like 190 and then I would just have to restart. But I think when he told me that, I was like, okay, well, I have to put in work on my left hand. I don't want any coach to be able to tell me that that they think that I'm a righty over a lefty. And then actually my freshman or my going into my senior year, I was recruited to one of my dream schools as a lefty attacker. And I was like, well, actually, I am a righty attacker. And they were like, what? And
No way.
so it did help me know that I finally lived up to what that coach is saying and was like, I put in work on my left hand, now they can't tell me.
That's
So
amazing.
that was more of like the physical side. So for any lacrosse players, my advice would definitely to be to work on both hands. You can never work on your stick skills enough.
Have you been at USF the entirety of your career?
No, I actually went to Clemson my freshman year.
So you got to college, and I mean, you've been playing lacrosse for a while now. So what would you say was one of like the most high pressure moments of your career and why?
I have two. I would say my freshman year, this is like a redemption story, and so it was
Okay.
high pressure for me.
Yeah.
So I played at Clemson my freshman year, and my freshman year we played Duke. They were ranked. It was our first ACC game at home,
Mhm.
and they were top 10. And I remember going through the recruiting process. Duke was like my ultimate dream school for a little bit. And when they were my ultimate dream school, the coach, reached out. This is going back into my senior year. So after the year of like my recruitment process. It was the summer and I was trying to get recruited again because I had decommitted. And so I was like back after I've done all this work and I felt really confident. And I remember they reached out to my coach and was like, wow, she looks like a completely different player than from last year. She looks awesome, giving all this great feedback. And then they said, but we just don't have a spot for her on the team. And I took that as that I wasn't good enough to, figure out how to make room for me.
Mhm.
And that could be the story or not. I truly couldn't tell you, but I just took it as that way and I used it as fuel to add to the fire. And so when we played them my freshman year, I thought to myself, this is my redemption game. And I was getting playing time, but I wasn't getting a lot of playing time in the big ACC games. Like, I think the first big ACC game that I got a lot of playing time in was against Virginia. And when I went in, I scored 2 goals back to back. And then I kind of started to get more in the rotation. And then it was the Duke game. It was after the second quarter. I went in, I scored a goal and then it was halftime. They kept me in. And then I scored the tying goal and then the game winning goal. And I remember like that was my redemption moment to say to the school that I felt like couldn't make room for me that, like this is kind of what you missed out on. So it was a high pressure moment for me. But so definitely also finding things to add to your fire that might motivate you or fuel you for the days to come for any athletes that maybe are lacking motivation or finding ways to motivate you. I would always find ways to motivate me. And then my another high pressure moment I would say was in the probably the semifinal American Conference Championship game. We were up on East Carolina and we were up by a good amount and we had blown them out in the regular season. And then they started to crawl back inch by inch, and I kind of felt that I was a little bit off in the game and just wasn't feeling my best self. So I asked myself, okay, I'm not like 100% right now in certain like abilities that I have. So I have to play into the abilities that I'm doing really well in right now. Like sometimes you have to, as an athlete, figure out, okay, what's my role on the team? I'm not 100% in this right now. How else can I contribute? So, really, at that moment, I felt like it was the high pressure moment to make sure that my leadership stayed at a high level because I feel like being a leader on the team, if your energy dips, and I would like to say that I'm an energy player, like I am very
Everyone feeds
there
off
is
your energy.
energy. Yeah, I have a lot of energy.
There you go.
And so making sure that my energy didn't dip, and even though in some areas of my games, like I was lacking at that point, making sure in this high pressure situation that, people could not tell if my energy was dipping or if any of us attackers doubted that we could win the game. Cause even though we're down by 2 at one point, like sure that my energy was consistently high. And then playing into the things that I was already we won that game. One of our midfielders, Caitlin tags her what we call our tags, but she ended up scoring the game tying, and then another midfielder, Bailey Morris, scored the game winning goal. So seeing that success for them was something that was even though like I didn't do that, I was so happy and proud of them for them to do that. And I knew that they needed it. And they are such amazing people and players. So being able to celebrate them is better than celebrating yourself. So but it's
Absolutely.
continuing to make sure that my leadership was still at a high level, even if I wasn't playing my best.
Absolutely. That's definitely some sick moments in your career, definitely. So I wanted to fast forward to a fun question I always love to ask, and you don't have to say the name of the coach or anything, but got to hear the detailed story. And we've heard some crazy stories on here, but I
Oh
want to
gosh.
know, have you ever had some coach say something so wild or out of pocket that like everyone's head just turned like, are you actually allowed to say that or like
I already have like 2 vivid memories, and one of them is
You don't have to say where you're at. No school, no name, just a story. Gotta be the exact story, though.
So I will say, I think some guy coaches, you know, the word I'm gonna
No
okay, actually,
filter,
I'm gonna
no.
go to the first. I'm gonna go to the first story.
Alright,
The first story, I don't know if any heads were turning because this was rec soccer, but I still remember it to this day. And this is one of the reasons why I partially quit soccer because of a certain coaches can, you know, make or break a sport for you. So I was into gymnastics and dance and all that stuff as a kid and cheer. And something that I loved to wear was bows because even though I wasn't on a cheer team, you know, I wanted to bring that same energy to the soccer team. So I would wear these huge bows in my hair, and they're from Justice, which was this really popular girls store growing up. I don't even think they're in business anymore, but I was obsessed with Justice and I had a huge bow from there and I would wear it every single practice. And this coach brought us all in. Mind you, we're like 5 or 6 years old, and I still vividly remember this. And he looks at all of us and he's like, "So, who here likes bows?" And I raised my hand. And he was like, "Who here doesn't like bows?" And like the other girls raised their hand and they were like, "Okay, so let's vote if Sophia should take off her bow right now." And all the little girls raised their hand. First of all, they couldn't back me up. But I had to take off my bow in the middle of practice and I went home and I told my parents and they're like, "Yeah, we're pulling you off of that team. You're not playing on that team anymore." Because he singled me out in front of everyone and he made me take off my bow. And that is something I still to this day am shocked, especially now having the perspective I do of like sports and everything. I can't imagine looking at little girls as a male coach and then asking the little girl to not even asking, telling the little girl to take off her bow.
that's
But
crazy.
that's beyond me.
Yeah.
So,
That's
but
insane. I mean,
yeah,
and your teammates didn't back you up. I'm surprised by that. I thought
mm,
everyone would love your bow. I thought other people would be wearing bows.
I did too. Honestly, looking back and I'm like, how did they not have a justice bow either? But yeah, that was
But
definitely
they weren't
very
as cool as you when you were
exactly.
that age. They didn't have a justice. They weren't hip.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. That's definitely a new one. That's awesome. So fast forwarding into a different topic, I wanted to ask you, so you might have gotten like a lot of offers. I don't know how many, but when you're looking for coaches and looking for a home for 4 years to play the sport you love, what are you really looking for in a coach and a team to make sure that it's not just a name school that you're going to, it's a home and a foundation that you're going to be able to build and grow to a championship level team?
I think your coaches are super, super important. And as much as they are looking for you to be a fit for their school, you have to make sure that they are also a fit for you. And especially in regards to coaches, I think for me, something that was super important was that they valued relationships and they were a relation based staff. And my staff at the University of South Florida is super relationship driven. And I always say it, but my head coach is like my second mom. They all have open door policies. You could go in there whenever to watch film, to talk about life, to literally talk about whatever you want. And to be able to have that experience as a student athlete has been incredible because, you know, you do a lot in your sport. And if you're not surrounded by one, I'll get into the team part after, but if you're not surrounded by great coaches and teammates, then it kind of makes it a little bit, you know, like, is this worth it? Do I continue? Do I want to work even harder for them? And,
Absolutely.
you know, for my teammates and for my coaches, I want to work super hard because I genuinely have a great relationship with them and I love them. And, you know, when I like, when I do well, they do well. And so always want to constantly put them in a position for success. So the better I can do for them, like, because of our relationship has definitely driven sometimes what motivates me if I'm feeling unmotivated and it's the urge to want to be great for the people around me. And
Absolutely.
then with that with that, especially my coaches here are super relationship driven, but they're also super culture driven. So I'm on the inaugural team, or last year was the inaugural team at USF. So the year before we had an exhibition year and our coaches came from Jacksonville University and I'm from Jacksonville. So again, I grew up, the first time I picked up a stick was at one of their clinics. They spread the game across North Florida and they're doing the same down here. So being able to kind of see what they built at JU, Jacksonville University, and then they're bringing it down here. And the first time I stepped on campus, the vision that they had for success and what they wanted their team to look like, I had never seen anything like it. They had core values, they had pillars, they had things, they already had like their pyramid and how they were going to follow this plan to achieve success. And I was completely blown away. And now the core values that we have on our team truly drives our culture and who we want to be as people and teammates and who we want to be remembered as. And I think it's super important to build a great culture and be on a team that values a great culture and, building yourselves as women also before as an athlete. And that is something that our coaches have done. And they also value us as people over athletes. And I think that can get lost in today's world of
Absolutely.
college athletics. So being surrounded by that has been amazing. And I think
Yeah.
that's definitely something you want to look for because you spend almost all day with the people
Yeah.
that
We're
on your
spending
team.
all year with these guys. Like, you
Yes,
you need to
exactly.
like them.
So definitely making sure that you, as much as they're looking at you, you're also looking at them and making
Absolutely.
sure that who they are is definitely aligned with who you are and your values and your morals.
Absolutely. And I'm guessing you carried that same exact mindset through the transfer portal as well?
Yeah,
Was it very difficult going into the transfer portal, or was it smooth sailing for you? Did you have enough film from Clemson to be able to translate into going to another big Division I school, or was it a little bit of a hard transition?
So I actually felt like my play at Clemson was the first time that I was able to show people like being an undervalued recruit or being like overlooked as an athlete in high school and not getting the offers that I wanted. And, Clemson gave me that chance. They played me and they put me in that position to achieve the things I was able to. So I was ACC freshman team. I was ACC player of the week when we played Duke. And then
As
I
a
was
freshman?
as a freshman.
Whoa.
Well, I said ACC freshman team, right?
Yeah,
Okay, I wanted to make sure I didn't say, like, ACC first team. I
I
was
think so.
ACC freshman team.
Wait, so you were doing very well at Clemson. What was the internal monologue to transfer and go to a different school? What was that deciding factor?
I think it was just exactly what I hit on. I think
Okay.
just the importance of relationships and making sure that you're somewhere that
You feel
you're
valued.
valued.
Yeah, yeah, I can't say, or I can't agree with that more. That's definitely very important. I mean, you mentioned your body transformation when you got to college. You're lifting more. You're doing a lot more in the weight room and different movements, a lot more competitive on the field, and you're also eating a lot more. So Division I or Division II, Division III athletics, the nutrition isn't just really like eating healthy, it's fueling for performance. We've talked a lot about. Walk us through like a game day meal timing. Like, what are you eating 2 hours before? What are you eating 4 hours before? And immediately after the game to ensure that you are fueled and ready to go. Because obviously, like, especially for girls, it's like, oh, I want to be skinny. I want to look good in a bikini, all this stupid stuff, but that does not reflect in Division I athletics.
Yeah, it definitely does not, and I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but seeing your body go through that change, like, watching my legs get bigger and, I put on weight was definitely a little bit hard for me at first until I switched my mindset of like, well, look what my body can do. Like look what it's providing for me to do. And I was definitely eating a lot more, especially when I first got to college, because I didn't really know with the schedule that I had, like how to eat. Like I was constantly snacking like all the time. And it would be to the point where I was like, okay, well, I don't need to be snacking on that right now. Like, I don't need to eat a honey stinger an hour before bed because that's just not like what's gonna fuel my
Honey
body.
stinger right before bed is crazy. Hey, but they're good dessert, but that's too much energy. You're
I know,
probably
and I was
bouncing off the
obsessed.
walls.
I was obsessed with honey stingers
They're good.
for the
They're good.
longest time, especially I found out what they were my freshman year, and, like, I would have at least 4 a day, and then I
Yep.
was like, "I don't need to be eating 4 of these a day." And so I think 1, figuring out what works for you. 1, meal prepping is essential. I still meal prep to this day, especially, like, my breakfast because my practice slot is in the morning, like, I make sure I have great breakfast. So, I've been making recently overnight oats, and I'll always have fruit with it, and then I will have my drink. I have, like, my everyday drink, and it has, like, a little bit of, like, natural caffeine in it, and then this thing it's called Longevity Mixed by Brian Johnson Blueprint, and so I always drink that, and I feel like that signal of, like, that routine, the food routine in itself always sends to my body, like, I'm ready for practice, like, because it's used to having that taste, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But for game days, I'm still trying to navigate that. Definitely some rice in there. Most likely it's gonna be rice and chicken. I'll always try and eat that. Or we get fresh kitchen before games, so I'll always have there's like sweet potato noodles and then chicken. I'll always have the sweet potato noodles and chicken as my pregame meal when we have
Something
that.
clean and light as protein and carbs. That's smart.
Yeah, or I'm a big steak girly. I would bring, like, full-on ribeyes to pregame meals if we weren't gonna have, like, the meat that I wanted, and I would just bring ribeyes, and sometimes, like, too much just full steak cannot be good. Like, last year, I remember I ate just steak and eggs before a game, but I had way too much steak, and during the game, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't think I could ever do that again." So
Steak and
sometimes
eggs
it
is
is a
more
lot
of
of
like a post-game meal.
yeah.
I don't know about pre-game. That's kinda crazy.
It's definitely trial and error, but figuring out what works for you. And then, too, especially for practice, I think that practice for me has been really essential to have that routine before so that I can go into practice with a clear mind. And it's the same with games, but obviously, games are at a little bit of a different time. They're not in the morning at 8 a.m. So making sure that you always have something, but something that I do always try and eat like at least 30 minutes before a game is a bar, like half of a bar. I always just like to get a little bit in my system so that I make sure that I feel like a good full where I'm not like digesting still, but I have energy in my system to keep on going and keep on pushing.
Absolutely.
So
That's perfect. You definitely gotta figure out the way your body adapts to those games and, trial and error. I love that.
yeah,
That's exactly what the name of the game.
yeah.
But I wanted to ask one last question, and this is like when you're mid-season, your body's wrecked, you are just destroyed in all aspects. You're maybe battling a little bit of a hamstring tweak or something like that. What is like your non-negotiable recovery protocol that's obviously not just ice or sleep tape or sauna or anything like that? Like, what's your non-negotiable, like you need to do it to get through the next day and the next day after that?
Well, last season I had a quad strain, and so I was playing on that all season, and I could not, like, even do a quad pull. I was in a lot of pain, and I think finding a doctor that you fully trust and can help you get through that. My athletic trainer is great. She would always help me with, she would put cups on my quad, she would needle it, she would like they call them thumbs, but basically it's like a massage. But I also found more of a specialist and those treatments are really, really nice and I love those, but sometimes they can only do so much. So it's like, okay, what else can I do?
Mhm.
But finding a doctor, I so since my coach is from Jacksonville, she knows a bunch of doctors in Jacksonville, and Tampa's 3 hours. So during our off days, I would drive to Jacksonville and I would go see this doctor who would I'm not kidding, I think he's a miracle worker because I could actually walk after I would go see him, and I think it's finding what works for you. Again, it's that trial and error, but he was more of like a homeopathic doctor. He's from another country. His training was a little bit different, so it was different than anything I had experienced, but
Mhm.
it would help my body so much. So the one recovery tool is finding a good doctor that you can truly trust and go to and tell them that something's hurting and they know what to do to fix it. So,
That's honestly probably the best advice I would agree with. That's hands down. It doesn't really I mean, a lot of athletes don't really think about it that much if they haven't experienced it, but the personal no offense to any of the personal trainers or
mhm.
athletic trainers at the schools, but you need to find a specialist and you need to make sure they are actually who they say they are. That you can't just go to a random doctor, a random PT, like big name PT place. Like they're not going to help you find and get to where you're trying to go.
And my athletic trainer, she is amazing, and she literally would stay after hours to make sure that I could, like, walk out of the facility and, like, not
Yeah.
be, like, limping, and she would do so much, but again, it's like, if they have a specialty in certain things, it is a little bit different, and also, she navigates a team with 40 girls on it. I can't
Yeah.
expect her to be at my beck and call every single second, even though that'd be super nice, but, like, it really is important, and I know sometimes it can be expensive to find certain doctors, but it's also, like, expensive to find a there's a roller that I got for Christmas that I, like, looked at the price and I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, I would rather like, It was really, really nice, and I still use it, but, like, you can spend money on, like, a nice doctor too.
Yeah,
So finding those doctors that can help you work through maybe some pain when you need them to
absolutely.
would definitely be something that I would advise.
100%. I think that's very good advice. Well, Sophia, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I learned a lot. I'm hoping that a lot of the younger generation learns from your lessons, and it was a pleasure getting to know you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was
Absolutely.